Hey everybody, what's up? It is the Cover Band Central Wisdom Hour, number 188 for Tuesday, November 29th, 2022. I'm Steve Witchell in New Orleans.
And I'm Tony B coming to you from New Jersey.
Tony
What's
Tempo
happening?
today.
Tempos
TT.
today. Let's talk tempo.
I
What do you
like
want to
it.
know? What do you want to know?
Yes, we are coming to you live right now as we do each and every Tuesday. We are broadcasting on the Cover Band Central Facebook page, in the Cover Band Central Facebook group, and on the Cover Band Central YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. There is a link in the description for that. And for those of you who are listening to the podcast and listen every week, we appreciate you. And make sure you share it. And you can also watch this on YouTube too. So if you don't only want to listen and you want to see what we look like and all that stuff, you can watch us on YouTube. The link is in the description. Check it out. Anybody
Check
that's
it
coming
out.
in here watching live, come on in and say hello. We will say hello back. And even if you're watching the replay, you can say hello like Elizabeth does every week. She says hello. Thanks for being here,
What's
Elizabeth.
up, Elizabeth? Bobby from Colorado.
Eric said the chat just got a little more handsome. Got to thank Eric this week.
Yeah.
This week I played a gig, which I'll talk about. I was supposed to be off the whole weekend. And
That's
ended
right. I
up,
heard you weren't playing, Steve. What happened?
ended up playing. And Eric just happened by while we were playing. He was on break from his gig, and I handed him my bass. I said, Eric, come on up stage, and gave him my bass and let him play a couple songs. And there was a reason for that, which I'll go into. But thank you, Eric, for doing that. I appreciate you.
And by happenstance, you just happened to be at the club.
Carl's here. Anybody else is coming in? Come on in and say hello. Tell us where you're from. I think I already said that. Like Chunk is here,
Chonk, man, where you been, brother? Haven't
and
seen you in a while,
I
right?
I just saw him 2 days ago. He was in New Orleans too, visiting
Wow.
for the holiday, and
Steve, all kinds of hosting going on over
and
there,
he
man.
came by while we were playing, and I tried to get him up, and he wouldn't come up on stage, but that's okay. Yeah, so Eric said it was fun, tight group. We were on break and had a chance to visit for a change, which was really cool. Because we don't normally play
Nice.
Sunday nights. It's normally Rockbox there that I play with.
Yeah.
So, all right, so I'll explain what happened. I was supposed to be off for Thanksgiving weekend. There's a thing called Bayou Classic in New Orleans on Thanksgiving weekend every year. And it generally brings a different kind of crowd, not the one that would come see a rock band. So we're usually off. But the band I played with during the day did work, but I didn't play. I gave it to the guy who subs for me, and the band at night at Fat Cats was off. But then I got a call Sunday afternoon from Jason, the band leader from the day band, and said, "Do you want to play tonight at Fat Cats?" They needed a band, so they asked the day band from Bandstand to play at Fat
Walk across
Cats
the
that
street
night.
and go play Fat Cats.
Yeah. So I said, yeah, okay. I had basically accomplished everything I wanted to for the weekend, and I was just chilling. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'll go in and play. So I did, and it was a relatively slow night. It's not a busy weekend really in New Orleans, and but it was fun. But there's more to that story that I will get into in a little bit.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty abbreviated version of the
Yeah.
happenings.
Edward's here. YouTube link is Hippie Chronicles. He calls himself Dan Simmons, not Edward. He's got his whole full name there, though.
Correct. You got to look at the
We'll check that out. Charles Downs from Southeast Virginia, joining the page of members. Thank you, Charles. Dig it.
down, Charles Downs.
So, just some house cleaning. We ran the Hercules contest for all of November, and that is
Yes.
finished. We were giving away smartphone holders for November, and we gave the last one away this week. For December, I'll announce that later this week, and then we'll talk about it next week, what we're giving away. But it is a huge Hercules item. It's one of the more popular ones. It's great to have in your arsenal at a gig or in the studio, at home, wherever you play, especially if you have a lot of guitars. That's all I'll say.
Oh, hint, Steve.
So I'll show it. Yeah, I'll announce it during the week, and then we'll talk about it next week here, and we'll show you a copy and what it looks like and all that. Rebecca
Good
says
stuff.
hi.
Excellent.
Rebecca has a lot of names. Elizabeth Brewer Little.
So she could be Becky, Liz,
She could
brewy.
be. Jeanette's from
Little.
Australia. Thanks for joining us, Jeanette.
Yeah.
So you played over the weekend, yeah?
I did. Yes, I played Sunday. Sunday.
Let's hear it.
Great gig indoors. It rained all day, so weather was crappy out. Um, but we had a great turnout. Good gig. Unveiled some new songs. My buddy was up from Florida for the weekend for Thanksgiving. He's going back yesterday, so he's back in Florida now. But he came with a crew of people, and yeah, we had a great gig. It was a lot of fun. Like I said, some new tunes to unveil, which is always a pleasure.
What were the new songs?
New songs were Abacab
Oh,
by
great
Genesis.
song, man. Great song.
And let me tell you, we kept saying, let's do some Genesis, right? Because that's like the one band we don't have in our repertoire that would fit in with exactly what we do.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many great tunes, and what era do you go, and how obscure, and how much B-side are people really going to know? So I said, we got to do Abacab, man. It's iconic, it'd be great. It's not super crazy, technical, difficult to pull off. We could do it. And we did it, and dude, let me tell you, it went over huge. Like, the response was tremendous, Everyone was applauding and cheering, and big surprise, like they were not expecting that. And then we did Love Lies Bleeding by Elton John.
Ah, another great one.
Yeah.
Do you do Funeral for a Friend, the whole intro?
No. It's just,
okay.
It's just, we don't think people are going to sit through 7 minutes of Elton. It's better just to bang, 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 So we do like the very, very last ending where it goes didn't, the whole build just before it goes into Love Lies. Maybe like 15 seconds of that. But that's it.
I used to do that with a band called Mad Rabbit I used to play with, and we would play, actually it was Bad Habit at the time, before it became Mad Rabbit. And we would do Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding by Elton John, the whole thing. And it would be a song that we would do like coming back from break, so having that
set
long
opener.
So having that long intro was kind of cool. It was kind of like when I played with you guys with Outskirts, we would come back and we would do the U2 song that had that kind of long drawn.
Yes, Streets Have No Name.
Streets Have No Name. We would do that coming back from break with Outskirts, and it had that nice long kind of creeping in intro, and everybody knows the song, so it's not like a boring intro. You know what's coming, and it's a really good kind of just to kind of ease you back in.
But I would agree with you on that aspect of it. But the word on the street is there's a couple of other bands in our region that do that song, and they do it really well, and they do the whole thing, and it's sleepy. It's too sleepy. It's like it's too long. So we decided to go the other route. We'll see. Maybe we go back. But I will tell you that we also ended Abacab. We cut out the 3 minutes and 45 seconds of the end of just, all the keyboard and noodling, and it's really cool part. But again, it's just it's almost 4 minutes.
Right.
So you could it's a whole nother song worth of time.
Right.
So get to the meat of the tune, get in, give the people what they want, have a creative ending, zip right out, get into the next one.
That's good. Good.
Yeah, so that was fun. And then we did Black Magic Woman, which isn't new, but we did now. We tried doing a drum solo in the middle of Black Magic instead of Golden Slumbers, which is great for me because it's a whole different feel and it's a whole different event, So it's a whole different perspective and thought for a spotlight. So that was fun. It was a good time.
Right. So you still do that whole Beatles thing, the Golden Slumbers?
Oh yeah.
And then to the end.
Yep. Yeah, straight through to the end. Yes.
I love that. I love that. So that was because you got Jimmy, right, in this band that you're playing with, right?
Yep.
I'm playing keyboards.
Yep.
And he was in Outskirts. So did he depart Outskirts before you or after you or at the same time?
No, he was still
or in Weisenheimer's, I should say.
Yeah, he was still in Weisenheimer's at that point when I departed. And then they had some shambles of a band that they tried to throw together to do a wedding here or there. But other than that, there's no more gigging. There's no more band.
Right, right.
Kel's playing full time with his gig.
Right. He's with the what's the name of the band?
Can't remember. Something simple too. I should know it.
And they're a pretty good, popular Jersey band too. He doesn't watch our show
He plays
anymore.
a lot though. He plays a lot.
He does play a lot because I do see his posts all the time.
Yeah, so
There's another band.
he's always playing.
There's another band in Jersey too, and I made a list recently, and I should say, like, I see other podcasts and listen to other podcasts that are kind of along the same lines as what we do, and most of them will have guests on, and we rarely have a guest on. So I made a whole list of people.
There's so much entertainment here, Steve. There's no room for guests right now. But after
There's room. There's
episode
plenty.
200, there'll be it'll be wide open. Calendar will be wide open.
Well, I made a list of people that I'd like to have as a guest, so that's going to start coming up. But one of them, I'd like to reach out to Paul Riario, who's a guitar player from New Jersey.
Yeah.
And he's somebody I've known since I was a teenager, or early 20s. I played in a band called Little Sister, and that's when I knew him. And he works for Guitar World. And he is an amazing guitar player, and he's got a band in Jersey called Super Trans Am, and they're like a 70s rock show. Mm-hmm. And they just played the Stone Pony, I think, over the weekend. I know it was a Stone Pony. I think it was over the weekend. And I saw just a quick clip of one song today, and Stone Pony packed. And, Stone Pony is an iconic room in New Jersey, that the house that Bruce built. And I've played there a couple times, but it was, jam-packed for a cover band. So, I want to talk to Paul about that band. I either personally know or know of all the players in that band, and they're all top-notch, players in that scene that have been around for decades.
And what's funny is, by no other connection, I know Paul's younger brother, Pete.
Right, and we did have this whole discussion about that. And
so that you didn't want
to tell the story about the records flying all over the place, but
we get Paul on. We'll talk about it.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to reach out to Paul.
He was there. He may remember it, or he may just deny it and pretend like he doesn't remember the story.
I'm going to reach out to Paul and try to get him here for next week.
But how you could not remember something as epic as that is beyond me.
Yeah. No, I'm sure he does. And Paul's a great guy, so he'll be a great guest.
You guys will like the story, and it's true.
So I was getting to a point, and I forgot what it was.
Yeah, talking about departures and Kel.
Cal, and your band, and and how that all fell apart, I guess. It's a rough business, folks.
Yeah,
it's not for everybody.
You got to treat people right, or they find people that will.
Yeah. So anything else of note from your weekend gig?
For anything else of note from my weekend gig, no. Just in summary, I would say that we got there early, had a good sound check. We were able to shake out some gremlins in the sound, and I had a great gig. Had a great Thanksgiving. Had some time home with the family. Kids are home from college. Got to jam with Cole for a little bit. My younger son, he's got some new original songs he's working on, so that was fun. So yeah, I'm excited to work on that. We had a little Thanksgiving jam. So yeah, life is good.
Original songs, what's that like?
Yeah, it's great. Well, that's what that's my bread and butter, man. That's what I was raised on. So
I know.
It's playing the cover thing's fun, but I would love to go back to originals again. So yeah, I'm getting a good exposure with Cole, because he's coming up with he's probably got 30 songs now at this point. And they're everything and anything from like a Van Halen Muse to like Harry Chapin to like Joni Mitchell to Billy Joel to Jackson Brown to Zeppelin, and plus he's learning a bunch of covers now too. So he's learned a bunch of Zeppelin covers, Rush covers, and just a bunch of tunes like at school. So
and he's playing guitar or bass?
He's playing bass. He's playing guitar.
Bass.
He's playing keyboards. He's playing drums. But he's primarily playing guitar, bass, and keyboards. Those are his three main instruments. So he'll write a song on keyboards that's of a certain vibe. He'll write a song on guitar, then accompany the bass. He plays acoustic. He's got 3 or 4 acoustics he's got. And then he's got all his guitars on the wall over here, right by here, all tuned to different tunings.
Right.
So, he's got open D, drop D, standard tuning. Then he's got, a couple of different, alternate tunings. So depending on what guitar he picks up will influence the perspective or the mood that he'll write a song in, which is always cool, because as soon as you pick up the guitar, it has a different sound to it, right? When it's tuned differently. And since they're all tuned up, differently, it's not like, I wish I would tune to open D, but that means I got to go now and retune, the whole guitar. No,
Right.
they're all done already. They're all up and ready to go. So he just picks it up, plugs it in, has this thing going. So the new thing is loops now.
Yeah,
I'm that
loops.
looper. So he'll create a loop, and then I'll groove along with the loop, and then he'll solo over top of the loop and me jam it.
That's the thing. Somebody asked that question last week. We were talking about it. About is a looper thing dead or
No,
is
I
it
think it's
just
it.
starting?
Yeah, I think it's just starting because I
Yeah.
mean, depending on what it is, but I know that the effects pedal that he uses is like an old Boss pedal from like the
Hmm.
'80s, and it's great, and it has a loop function built into it, but you can only loop one thing, and then you can play on top of it. So you can't do like when you see these loop competitions where they create a loop, then the guy will play a bass loop. You know what I mean? Then he'll play a keyboard loop, and he can keep adding and building, and then turning on and off with a foot pedal the different loops. So
Right.
he's not. We're not that advanced yet, but I foresee that probably coming because we do it now with GarageBand. Cole go down, lay down an acoustic track, then he'll accompany it with a bass. Lay down a groove, or go and lay down a drum track with a click, just a reference track, and then build on that, and then come down and be like, "Hey, what do you think about this idea?" And he won't play me his reference track, and I usually come up with something similar or something completely different than what he did. You know,
Right. That's cool.
which is either like, yeah, I like that better than what it's a cool idea to go halftime there or double time or that different feel or that superimposed thing there as opposed to what originally was going to do there. Or sometimes it's a more simplified part. But yeah, it's a lot of fun get to create parts again and not recreate parts. But equally as fun because I will tell you that like I think the most fun I had this weekend was like we talked about last weekend a little bit was with the two new songs, playing Abacab and then playing Love Lies Bleeding. Two
Hmm.
way different styles, right? Abacab's the first record that Phil was really the front man on. It was the first album that they produced themselves, and he had a big hand in producing. So it's super drum heavy. So if you listen to Abacab, the loudest thing in the mix are the drums. Every aspect of them,
Right. Right.
cymbals, drums, snare, toms, bass drum. It's up front, right? It's front and center, and he plays a very particular pattern. It's not just he
Right.
constantly mixes it up, and as he's telling the story of the lyrics, he's accentuating certain parts of the lyric with bass with his kick drum. So if you really
Right.
listen to it, he plays a very orchestrated part with a ton of feel, but it's very much not repetitive. And then you go to Elton John, and you have the same exact thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
You have the parts that are very like we talk about, like almost avant-garde and jazzy, and not a lot of crash cymbals, and they're doubled up. Like the hi hat's still playing the whole time through the song. It's double tracked, and while he's playing on the ride cymbal and doing something else. So to
Right.
try to recreate that, which is possible, you need some ambidextrous, some dexterity, but it's possible to do it. So you can play the groove along by going tz, 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 down, da, na, 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 as you're playing. You accent the hi hats, and some have bass drums, and some of them are open and empty. So that was cool to actually listen to new songs that we haven't done from radically different artists, right? Both equally great and popular, but two different approaches to songwriting, right? And musicality and arrangement. So
Right.
that was the thing I take away from this weekend was, you know, when we do what we do in cover bands, like we talked about in the past, you really got to study the parts and try to get inside, at least for me, the drummer's mind of how he's thinking about how he's playing that part.
Right.
What parts are driving, what parts aren't. And it's fun to play songs that aren't just, straight ahead, same thing, verse, chorus, repeat, solo, verse, chorus, out. And
Right.
it's basically the same groove the whole time. You know what I mean? Like, great tunes though, like Swingtown, right? Great tune,
Hmm.
but you're not deviating. The groove is the same the
Right.
whole time.
Right.
You know?
Or else it wouldn't be Swingtown.
Exactly. It wouldn't have that swing that you find there in Swingtown.
Right.
So that was fun to play songs that are more challenging to where you have to remember and actually listen to what the parts are and figure them out.
Right.
Like the beginning of Love Lies, you've played it, right? But
Yeah.
next time you play it with a drummer, see if he cops the intro when it first comes in with the piano and
Hmm.
the hi hat comes in, right?
Right.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4,
Right.
and 1, and 2. Dun, dun, dun. So if you're not listening and figuring it out, you just say, oh, he's just playing some random bass drums there, because when you listen to it, it sounds like kooky. It's not on the downbeats, you know what I mean? It's
Right.
E's and U's, and the last one's on the downbeat of the 2. So check that out, Steve. You report
I
back when
will.
you next
I,
time you play. All right, I
I
want a
will.
recording on a phone.
It's
We'll
been a
see
long time.
how these guys in New Orleans are really up to speed or not. Right? If it's
We
all
just
a bunch of
played foreplay long time though, and I hadn't played that.
yeah,
I
great
hadn't played
tune.
that in a long time,
Yep.
and I've played it so many times though that I pretty much remembered it. But we got a request for that. This was last week, and yeah, that was fun to play that song. It's a fun song to play, and the fact that I hadn't played it in a long time was like, oh, okay, cool. Do I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
remember this one? But I did.
That's a great tune, man.
Yeah, a
We've
lot
been
of
talking
fun.
about doing that one for a while too, breaking that one out.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
So yeah, I guess I'll get to the topic here. Nobody has commented on the topic yet.
Hey, so wait, so before you get to the topic though, when you guys do long time, do you take it down a half step, or is it a guy singing it, a girl singing it?
It's a guy singing it.
Wow. Okay.
Trying to think who sang it. It must have been Sonny. We
Someone with a
have
good register.
yeah, in Rockbox we have Sonny. He sings and he sings all the Journey and the high shit
Okay, so
and
he's
he's really good. We've been doing Everybody Wants You by Billy Squire.
oh yeah, we do that tune too.
Yeah, which and he sounds just like Billy Squire when he sings it. He gets in that nasal Billy Squire voice, and he hits all those notes. And the one that he always says is hardest, we do Photograph by Def Leppard, and that
That's
gets
a tough
off
tune.
there. Yeah, but he's got a great voice. You know, he's got that high
Yeah.
tenor voice, so he nails all that stuff. But
Topics.
yeah, the topic I chose was substance abuse, and I always try to draw topics from what's going on in my real life and my real gigging experiences, and it's a fine line because there are people that that I know that watch this and listen and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus or get anybody into trouble. But at the same time, I like to keep it real. So
Allegedly.
allegedly real.
Yes.
So like Abe, my guitar player, current guitar player, said he was watching last week. He never said hello. So Abe, if you're watching, say hello so we know you're watching.
He's
But
checking in to make sure you're not talking about him.
no, I don't think so. He said it was interesting.
Interesting.
He said
Indeed, it is.
Eric said Sonny is the man, so he
Yes,
can
he was
back me
funny
up on
too.
Sonny singing. But all right, so I mean, in general, if you work in the music industry, you're going to be exposed to substances. Whether you're using them or not, you're going to be exposed to them pretty often, almost all the time. And when I
Potentially.
say, yeah, and when I say substances, I don't mean alcohol and I don't mean pot. Because pot, although pot is kind of a substance, I guess, it is so ubiquitous that it's not even, and it's also legal now in a lot of states, so it's not like, and people, I'm a pot advocate, so I don't think it's really dangerous. I think it's actually good for you in many ways. So when I'm talking about substances, I'm talking about other things that are like illegal drugs, pills, cocaine, heroin, stuff like that. And I don't know.
And why do you think musicians would be doing that, Steve, before performing?
Hi, Leo from
What's up,
Mesa,
Leo
Arizona.
from AZ?
Why? Because people are troubled,
Mm,
and
indeed. No,
in
I
many
was saying
many
that kind of
different ways.
facetiously because if we knew that answer, we'd be able to solve a lot of history's greatest riddles and tragedies, right? Why do people
Yes.
do the things they do? I think you hit the nail on the head with the second word of that, which is abuse, right? So
Hmm.
it's again, when you're a professional musician, we always say this, right? You're hired to for what you do, and you're supposed to bring your best every time. And if you think that excessive drinking or pills or blow or any other narcotic is going to make you play better, I think that's you're fooling yourself. I think that's a way to, to justify the behavior. But again, I think if you record yourself often and watch back, you'll be able to tell at what times you were. And it depends on the motif of the band too, right, Steve? Because if there's only one guy in the band who's doing it, it's a lot easier to say like, dude, you got to stop, or you got to ease up on that, as
Yeah.
opposed to if it's, three-quarters of the band that's doing it, then you're the odd man out, or like you said, what do you do in that case? Do you just tolerate it? Who do you have the conversation with if most of the band is abusing something?
Right. So that's a tough situation if you are the odd man out. So do you do something about it, or do you just leave the situation, or do you just ignore it? Some people can just ignore it and just do their own thing and be fine with that. But it's funny you said about people thinking they're better when they're, doing certain things. Somebody said it to me recently, and I have been recently really tempering drinking because I'm doing so much, playing so long. I'm doing doubles and stuff.
Yeah, you need the endurance, sure, and the
So
energy.
I bring lots of water with me, and I'll drink a little bit. Generally, not during the day at all, and then maybe a little bit at night, and that's it. And so, the rest of the band, one of the times recently, was drinking a lot, and I wasn't drinking at all. And somebody said to me, "We play better drunk, don't we?" And I'm like, "No, no, you don't."
Right.
And I can see why people think that they do, but they definitely don't.
Well, because
In that
think
case,
about
anyway.
it in that effort of when you're sober and have clarity and you're playing and you're fully aware and you're bringing your best, right? I mean, you're in the moment of consciousness that you're bringing that, or you're channeling that energy. I think that when you're intoxicated, you block that channel a little bit, and your bar gets lowered, as far as, like they say, beer goggles, right? It applies to everything, things that you
Mm.
normally wouldn't look at or appreciate when you're sober. Now all of a sudden they're like, well, that's not so bad. So I could see why people would say that, like, I'm playing great because you feel great, but it's an illusion if someone else is being like, no, you're really not, and that's why I said it's good to record yourself sometimes and watch things back, right?
Oh yeah.
I think that sounded great, and you watch it back and you're like, oh wow,
Oof.
won't do that again.
Right.
Right. But if you'd ever watched it back and everyone told you were great at the gig, right? That's a good topic. So if you're in a band, put this up on next time, Steve. If you're playing in a band and at the end of the gig, and you say to yourself, man, I counted like, 10 things that were just not good. And I think overall the band did not sound that good. And then you watch back a recording and you're like, well, it's not as bad as I thought, but there's still some moments in there that I would cringeworthy moments. But yet everyone at the place had a great time. You got booked for 5 more shows there. The crowd had an awesome time. People wanted the band's card because they're having some private event they may want to hire the band for. And everyone's praising the band with accolades of how great the performance was. So at the end of the day, was it a great performance gig? Even though you may look back at the performance and say that was probably like 75% of what the band's capable of,
Right.
But the crowd walked away 100%, satisfied.
Right.
Recording the whole, for their own purposes. Maybe they have different standards than you, but you know what I mean? So that's always an interesting thing to say. Well, then was it a success? Yes. Was it a great gig? I think that's a matter of opinion.
Right. And yeah, great point. That's why it's good to record it so you can go and back, watch it back, but to get feedback from people too. And I hope Chonk is still watching. He said why people do it. He said traditionally boredom while touring, and
Yeah,
that definitely happens
that's a
too.
different story, though. If
Right.
you're on the road for 200 days a year, right? You got to find something to occupy your time that's productive, or you're going to get sucked into unproductive, idle badness.
Right. Mark said, "I think you're not yourself if you need to take drugs to perform. You could throw the whole sound off." Yeah, I don't know if it's a need to take drugs to perform. I remember I'm sure you've seen it. We've probably even talked about it. History of the Eagles, and where Joe Walsh was talking about when he stopped drinking that he was terrified to go on stage and
Mm.
sing, because he always drank, and to him that was a whole new territory. That was all a whole new ball game for him, and he was terrified about it. And I think about that a lot when he talks about that, because sometimes I drink on stage and sometimes I don't. And I don't feel any real difference in my approach as far as my confidence is concerned.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
maybe because I've been doing it for so long since I was a kid, and when I was a kid, I wasn't playing and drinking. I wasn't drinking age. I'm sure we drank anyway at times, but I wasn't getting, I wasn't drinking on
Yeah.
stage. So I don't know, but I think for some people that sort of Joe Walsh mentality is true, where they feel like I need to be high to play. I need to have this fixed of whatever this is to get up on stage, because a lot of people are get stage fright or are not
Yeah.
comfortable being on stage. And so what happened was our bonus gig on Sunday. Those guys had been playing all day, and they were asked about halfway through the day if they would play at night, and they agreed. So those guys drink during the day, and sometimes they drink a lot, but I didn't really get the impression that they had been drinking a lot when I arrived, which was when they were done with the day gig. And then we had some time in between. We had to wait for the other band to finish.
Hmm.
But those guys are doing other things besides drinking and besides smoking pot. And it's they're not hiding it from me anyway. And I don't necessarily have a problem with it unless it becomes a problem on stage. And
Not a problem until it becomes a problem.
yeah, and for one of the members, and I'll see if Chunk noticed it, the singer. I mean, he had, I guess, been drinking all day, and was drinking at night and probably doing some other stuff too. I was told. I didn't, allegedly.
Allegedly, yes,
I didn't see
allegedly.
it.
Unconfirmed.
But by the end of the night, his performance was seriously being compromised. And there was a point where I was like Jason said to me, don't let him sing anymore. And I called a song which I thought he'll be fine, he'll be okay in the song, and we started doing it. And I think this was after Chonk left, so maybe, and definitely after Eric was gone. So I don't know that those guys could give me any feedback on it, but once we started the song, I realized, this was a mistake,
Mm.
because it was just the pitch was off, the
No
everything
turning
was
back at that point, though.
it
You're
was bad.
already in.
I was already in, and I felt like I wanted to find the spot to cut the song short, and I kept looking at Jason, like thinking, "Can we
Like
end it
now.
here? Can we end it here?" And there was just no spot to do
Mm.
it, so we had to play the whole song. And then after that, Jason told him, "Go take a break," and we had only had at that point 15 minutes left, 20 minutes left, maybe. Yeah, okay,
Yes,
so
you're close to the end of the night at that point.
so Sean said makes sense now. I just figured he was tired, but so he knows who I'm talking about. But he
Yeah.
was tired, but he was doing blow too,
But that's what I'm
allegedly.
saying. But remember, you've played a day gig of how many sets, right?
Five
And then
sets.
and then you have another night gig, sober and prepared. That's a taxing ask, right? So to be intoxicated going into the night, already having spent the day and expended, all your energy, right, for that gig, and now you got to bring it again at night, and allegedly you might be engaging in some activities that you think will help boost you, right, to get your energy back up again.
Right.
But again, it's not going to make you sober, right? So if you're drunk, that's going to stick around a little while. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
No matter what you do, you're not all of a sudden going to be undrunk to where you're like, oh, now I'm awake
Right.
and I'm sober and I'm on stage and I'm full of energy, right? You know,
Right.
you're 6, 8 beers in and you've got a good buzz going. That's not something that's going to wear off in 15 minutes into a set.
Right.
Maybe if you
Wait.
stopped drinking an hour beforehand and then drank water the entire second gig, maybe by the 3/4 way through mark, you might be, have enough fuel left in the tank to bring it home.
Right. But which is why people try to compensate for that by doing other things. Like, okay, I'm drunk and so let me,
Again, but
I need
downer,
something
downer,
to,
downer, and now upper, 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 right?
right.
It just makes you, up, but you're still down. That makes sense. Doesn't reverse the effect, right? It just intensifies your drunkenness, but now you're just aware and you're upbeat and you're awake, but you're still hammered.
Right. And once you crash from that up that you take, that's a hard crash.
Yeah.
And I'm no angel. I've done it before. It's not a regular practice for me, but I have done it. And I hate that feeling. That's why I won't do it now, because I hate
Kind
that.
of like when you go out and get drunk and have a great time, you wake up next morning, you're like, oh, I'm never drinking again.
Yeah, yeah. And have that feeling within a couple hours, that same feeling of, so.
Yeah.
So
Well, you know what I mean? Once you cross that line with drinking and you're hammered, like that's not a good place to be on stage.
no,
Because there's no escape, there's no way out, and you're definitely not bringing your best at that point anymore.
Right.
You're clawing on for survival of your own doing,
Right.
right? So like, I would try to avoid everything possible not to ever have to be there, right?
Right.
Who wants to be in that position? We've all been there. I can remember playing gigs and people buying shots for the band, and you got to do them. And the guy comes up and you're not putting it down. You're drinking this one with me, and you do the shot, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoo, and you're almost borderline like too hammered to continue playing.
Yes, I've had that a couple times. Considering how many times I've played New Orleans, it's a very, very, very low percentage of times, but I've had it happen a couple
That only
times
happened to me once, one time, and it was on video, and I never drank like that again. I just said I appreciate it, but do not buy me a shot.
Right.
Not 20 people buying the band shots. You know what I'm saying? Because then you get trays of shots that nobody's drinking.
Right.
So we'll try to tell people ahead of time, like, you want to buy the band a drink or something, we appreciate that, but please don't come up with trays of shots, right? Because not every guy is going to drink them. And like you said, you get 4 or 5 people deep. Now you've got 20 shots in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough in New Orleans. We had this guy a couple weeks ago for Rockbox, bought us a round of shots, and early in the night, we're like 3 or 4 songs in
right.
to a 8-set night.
You're 3 or 4 songs into a 80-song evening.
80-song evening. And comes up with a round of shots, walks back to the bar, buys us another round, brings it to the stage. And he did that 5 times in a row. Just bought the shots, walked them to the stage, went back to the bar, bought shots, walked them to the stage. So, yeah. So we just had shots lined up.
Yeah, much appreciated, but at the same time, right, that's, if you do every shot that everyone buys for you, you're not going to get through 3 sets,
Yeah, and I think at that point, after 5, one of the singers said to him, "All right, that's enough. Stop."
Yeah, like, thanks, dude, but stop. Like, yeah,
we'd rather have the money. Give us tips.
Exactly.
Tip the band instead of giving us all this alcohol. So I had all these shots lined up on the side of me, and I was like sipping during the night, just sipping them. But so this is where this gets a little sticky, and it's scary too right now. This person, the singer from that band, on Sunday was it was told to take a break, and he left the stage, and we haven't seen or heard from him since. So we heard that his car, he got in the car and he left. I guess it was parked in a lot, but he didn't take his guitar, he didn't take his phone. So we haven't been able to reach him. And we looked around for him for a long time and couldn't find him.
But his car's gone, so he got in his car and left.
Yeah, but he was not in shape to drive, and he has to drive a long way home. So it's scary, and that's gross. Eric said he does the Coyote Ugly thing and spits it back in the beer bottle, but that's clever too.
Well, see,
that's what you do. You drink the shot, then you pick up your beer bottle as if you're going to do a chaser, but instead you spit the shot into the empty beer bottle.
There you go. That's pretty.
So that way you're not insulting anybody.
Correct. See, what we used to do is they'd bring the shots up and they hand it to the drummer, and then they're so preoccupied watching everyone else get the shot, you can take the shot and hold it in your hand this way so you can't see the cup, just the top rim, and dump
Right.
it in a keg cup or an empty cup behind the drums, like a cup, like a red, like a red keg cup.
Yeah.
Dump it right in there, and yeah, excellent, thanks, dude, and chuck the empty or give him the empty back, and then at the end, right, just like the cup you're drinking out of. By the end of the night, you got a half full cup, 3/4 full maybe, but you're still at optimum performance and peak efficiency because
Right.
you haven't compromised yourself.
The great thing about the red Solo cup is you don't know what's in here.
That's right. That's right.
Could be water. Could
Where's
be
the
milk,
button, dude? Where's
could
the
be
button?
wine. Could be
That's right.
beer. I'm not even close to where
Oh,
I
I
know
thought
where
you
that
had
is.
That's right.
But yeah, I've been there too, though. In the past, I have played in a situation where a member of the band got so intoxicated that couldn't play anymore, and then was called out on stage like, dude, what are you doing? And was just like, you know what, I'm done with you. And just like unplugged the instrument in the case, out. And then,
Wow.
okay. And some guy in the bar being like, dude, I play bass and like I live down the street. I can go get my bass. What's your name? Rob. Yeah, Rob, go grab that bass. Bring it back.
Wow.
Then Rob
There
comes
you
back
go.
at the bass, and then it lets everyone know that he's in a Black Sabbath original band that doesn't really know any covers, but he's game for trying anything.
There you go.
Yeah, great. Here's 50 songs we just rattled off,
Right.
and no one had better with beer. There you go.
Leo's band is called Better with
Better
Beer.
with beer. Yeah, but that's for
his
the audience,
band's
not
name.
for the band members.
So yeah, there's that way of looking at it too. Yeah. Shane said, I drink energy drinks or something like that only. I don't mix drinking and music. I need to be energetic and aware.
That's right, Shane. Energetic and aware. I like that.
So I'm holding good thoughts and prayers for my friend who is currently missing
And this was on Sunday?
Sunday. Yeah.
So now
two-
Monday,
2
Tuesday,
days
has anyone
ago.
tried going to his house?
No, not. I mean, maybe somebody has, but not any of us.
Maybe he's just home and he's like, man, I don't know where my phone is and I don't know where my gear is. And
No,
guess-
well,
know.
there was an attempt to contact his significant other as well, and that was
met with no reply.
came up empty. Yes, no reply.
Wow.
So it's scary, and I hope.
Yeah, I hope he's okay. That's
hope
the other
he's
peril of doing these precarious things, right? You're putting yourself in jeopardy. You
Yes.
think it's great and it's fun, for that moment in time, but
Yes,
lasting effects, right?
I will, Chuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
we
kind of
should-
mentioned that in the description here of this topic about it's really led to people's demise, and it's a shame. It's either was recently or coming up very soon where the anniversary of Razzle from
Hanoi rocks.
Hanoi Rocks was killed at he was 24 or something like that, 26 maybe, and he was killed because Vince Neil was driving drunk, and he was Razzle was a passenger in the car, and
Yeah.
Vince Neil killed him, and
And that's like got to be almost 30 years ago.
yeah, it was the early to mid 80s. It was when Motley Crue was just really starting to be like huge. So it was like 85, 86 maybe.
Yeah, I guess so, because I remember I saw the Crew, the first show back tour after Vince got out of prison.
Right.
And that was like, yeah, late 80s. So,
So yeah, about 30 years, and Nikki Sixx, famously almost died of a heroin overdose,
yeah, a couple times.
and I've never done heroin. I mean, I never would, but I know people that either have done it or do still do it. I know people that are actively, and some people that are musicians, some people that are not, and it's frightening to me. Like that scares the shit out of me, and that's not something I would do because it scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, I don't even like getting a flu shot. I can't imagine putting
Right,
a needle in your own arm and then having to, find a new place for it every other day or something.
right,
It's just nuts. Yeah, that's not something I wouldn't want to get that high that badly.
right,
You know. Although they say, Steve, once you try heroin, though, that's why these people are all addicted because it's so great that they don't want to go back to normal life.
right,
They'll abandon everything to chase that high.
right.
So just for that reason alone, I would suggest people not try it.
Yeah. I
Doesn't
mean,
sound like something you want to do. Like, hey, Steve, try this drink. It's really good. You'll feel great. Problem is, like, you'll need to drink another one tomorrow, and then the day after that, you need to drink two.
right. And it's
And
going
the
to
day after
cost you
that,
a
you need to
hundred
drink
dollars a
three.
day or something
Correct.
like that.
Exactly. And then, by the time the month is up, you'll have no money left, but you'll be great. You'll feel excellent. You'll feel, like $1,000,000.
Right. Are there other ways, Tony, to feel better
Of
than
course,
than
Steve,
doing substances?
get on stage sober and play music. What better feeling is that? you know? There's no better feeling than that when you're channeling from the ether, and you're bringing in the magic and playing it for your fellow human beings.
Right.
That's what high is all about.
A natural high that you get from music.
Natural high, baby. I think high's into perspective too. If you're bummed out and down all the time and always looking for something to pick you up of artificial nature, there's plenty of other ways to pick yourself up, but you would need to change your perspective, to look at that and say, this is not good for me in the long run. I'm only fooling myself, right, by doing this when I think I'm playing better, but I'm really not. I'm hurting the ones around me because I'm not playing at my best and they're getting pissed off about it. And, maybe you have other problems in your life, relationships or work or things that stem from that. And it's like, a lot of people I think are just in denial. It's real hard to be honest with yourself sometimes, Steve. You
Yeah.
can try to convince yourself of a million different ways that something you're doing is plausible, or you could try to convince yourself and say, "Oh, that wasn't that bad," or "No, that was that's not a big deal," But deep, I think in our heart, we know what the right thing is to do. Unfortunately, I think the further off the path you get, the less of that feeling you have to coax you back. You get off the path and you get so deep into the woods that you're not even thinking about the path anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's when people, I think, go to rehab and they get pulled out of the woods and, the dark places that they end up in, and they get back on a path. And then once they see the path and all the benefits that the path can offer, it's like, wow, I forgot, I wasted 10 years or whatever time of your life, doing drugs and being disassociated from society or whatever the case may be. Or even if it's not affecting you in that manner, you could say, man, I spent 10 years playing in bands where I was at like 50%. I played for tens of thousands of people and I was not anywhere near my best,
Right.
and just then do you have regret about that, and then or do you say, but I can change right now, and the next 10,000 people that I play in front of are going to get a new version of me, new and improved.
Yeah. You need a motivating factor. And
100%.
Something that is driving you, and you need to want it more than you don't. Like I liken it to when I quit smoking. I smoked for 25 years, and I quit. Now it's about 6 years ago. And when I was deciding to quit, I wanted to quit more than I wanted to smoke. And
Right.
it wasn't 100% wanted to quit and 100% didn't want to smoke, but it was more. It was more than 50% of me wanted to quit. So that was it. That was
Sometimes
enough.
people don't want to quit, Steve. They like
Right.
the way they feel, and they like doing it, and they have regret, but then it's quickly forgotten as soon as they're back into it again.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you or I can do to change that.
And we're not in that position like Mark mentions. Consequences are grave for like John Bonham, Keith Moon, Tom Petty, etc.
Yeah, it catches up with you,
But
man.
those are people that had a mega success in their musical lives, and we're just talking about people that are, general, everyday musicians.
Yeah, but the temptations are still there. I think.
Oh,
Is what
sure.
that last
And-
gentleman was
and there
saying
has-
about we would still have some of these greats, right, if they didn't go to excess.
Right.
So like you said, abuse is the key word that we take away from that, right? Substance abuse. You can have a beer, or you can have 12 beers, right?
Right.
What is excessive, and what is the limit for what you can tolerate, right? I wouldn't say having a beer per gig is in any way detrimental to you being able to perform.
Right.
You know
Yeah,
what I
I'm
mean?
talking more about, like I
Yeah,
said at
I
the
know what
top
you're
of
saying,
this.
but it's still, but alcohol could still be a substance that could be abused
Sure,
because,
sure, sure.
like you said, you get 6, 7 drinks in, you're definitely sloppy. There's no way you're singing as good as you were, 4 drinks ago.
Yeah. And I don't want to come off as preachy either because
Oh no, definitely
I'm going to
not.
be, it's very hypocritical of me because I do like to drink, I do like to smoke weed, and I have done other things before. I'm pretty good. I would say I'm very good with, as far as when I'm playing, when I'm working. I know how to, pace myself. I drink water all the time. I eat too, on breaks and stuff. So I know how to pace myself and not
It's
go
also the
overboard.
environment, Steve, like we talked about. You work
But
in
it's
an
the environment.
environment, because if you worked at a regular job, your boss would be like, I don't care what you do, on your own time, but do not come to work impaired,
Right.
right? I'm paying you to be here. Expect you to be clear, alert, awake, sober, and bringing your best version of yourself,
Right.
not come compromised, which is also a liability for the employer if you fall down and get hurt, crack your head open, or you're working with machinery or something happens to you, right? Because you're not sober. That's a liability, right?
Hmm.
So I think it gets overlooked more in clubs and stuff because people there are drinking and most people are intoxicated. That's why they're going to the bar and they're having a good time, right? But you don't
Right.
see the bartenders doing shots with every patron and being fall down drunk at the end of the night, right?
Sometimes you do.
Yeah. But I'm saying, but
Sometimes you do.
yeah, but for the most part, you're that a professional bartender is not supposed to be doing shots and drinks with the clientele, or at least not to the point of being so impaired that they can't function.
Right. Leo said he has one beat per set, but doesn't that make your tongue all purple?
Badoom, psh. Yeah,
It's
one
like
beer. Yeah, one beer per set. Again, even that is
Brian has a beer every set along with a peppermint schnapps. Yuck. Over ice.
that doesn't sound so bad.
Right. Peppermint
Yeah,
schnapps.
but again, everyone knows their limits, right? Like if you can have a beer a set
Right.
and I think you're still able to drive home, you know, as opposed to if you had,
Yeah, even legally, yeah.
2 or 3 beers a set, right? Because you're spacing them out over the entire gig. So if you play 3 sets of music, it's got to be 4 hours with breaks, right? So by the time you get there till you finish your last beer,
Right.
it's been 4 or 5 hours since you first had a drink.
Yeah, and yeah, Chonk said that too, and is something I was going to say. Rock and roll is one of the few professions, or just being a musician is one of the few professions where drinking
Yeah,
slash drugging is accepted, if not encouraged. Yeah,
yeah,
encouraged even. Drinking definitely, and drugs too, in certain circumstances. And yeah, like I said, the environment. I'm in New Orleans, and you walk down the street on Bourbon Street and you can't walk a block without somebody saying, "Hey, I got some coke. You want some coke?" It's everywhere. It's there's you could buy weed, you could buy coke, you could buy I mean whatever you want. You could get pills if you want to.
yeah.
Jason's calling me right now, so I got to
And
pick
again,
it
it's
up.
like how much you care about the band that you're in the situation, right? Like you said, if you're just a hired gun and you're the odd man out, and everyone in the band is abusing something or other, and it's becoming an issue, and like what do I care? I'm just showing up, getting paid. If the band doesn't sound good, it's not my problem. I'm not the band leader. It's different if you're more invested in a band where it's like, guys, come on, man, like take some pride in what we're doing here.
Right.
You pride yourself on delivering a certain, and I think it's evident, Stephen. Maybe you correct me if I'm wrong, but if you walk around New Orleans and you say, here's the top 5 bands in New Orleans, I don't think that the majority of the guys playing in those bands have substance abuse problems.
I would agree. Yeah, I
They're
would agree.
probably
And some people,
buttoned up and professional and got their shit together.
yeah, and some people are, are good at moderating themselves too, and just have a bad night once in a while, and that's probably most of it. Like the frequency of somebody going overboard, it's rare. But yeah, what's more important to you, working or partying?
Yeah, and again, we're certainly not preaching to anybody like we're saints and we do everything the right way. All I'm saying is that I think personally, in my opinion, that you can't bring your best if you're so impaired that you're struggling to finish the night. as opposed to bringing it that third set fresh and ready to go because the crowd's pumped and primed and you're going into the home stretch now, right? And now's
Right.
where you want to bring it, right?
Right.
That's not the time to be hesitant about your abilities.
Yeah. But it's also understandable too, like based on Sunday, like we were, it was slow, and we were fighting all night to get anybody to walk in the door. I mean, we were playing to zero people for quite a while,
Mm,
and then eventually we got some people in there, and at most we had 10 people in the room,
right.
at most,
But you guys
and
still got paid, right, to perform. So it's not like an
yeah,
opportunity to say, well, there's nobody here, so let's just get hammered and have fun.
right. But I can understand why somebody was like, it's no
Yeah.
big deal. There's nobody here. I'm just gonna drink and like. But then once you go over a certain line, you have to be able in yourself to recognize it and say, "Oh, I gotta slow down here. I
And
have
what
to
happens if you're
stop."
that if you're two sets in and no one's here, right? So you're drinking and partying, and all of a sudden, two songs later, there's 150 people in the bar, and the place is
Right, right,
alive.
right. And
What
now
do you?
all of a sudden it's
Yeah. Now what?
reality.
Right now, what are you going to do? Reality's here, dude.
Yeah,
It's not two people that couldn't care. Now it's a whole packed room full of people that are all eyes on you.
yeah, and that's very much a possibility in New Orleans.
Yeah, that's why I say
Uh,
that because the tide can change, right?
right.
Just like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it's tough, man. It's a tough discussion, and like I said, it's a little difficult for me because of the reality of it, of what I'm doing and the people I'm working with. But it's
I think it
it,
becomes an issue, like you said, if you're playing multiple gigs and it's affecting the whole band and it's evident, that it's a problem. Like you said, a one-off night here or there, I think that goes with the territory. But I think a
mhm,
consistent, departure from what's expected, it warrants a conversation.
yeah. And I had to do it before I was a band leader, and this was years ago, where I had a person who was subbing for me, showed up impaired, and then was drinking, and and when we were on break, I had to let that person go for the night, and that was a difficult conversation to have, and but I had to do it. I didn't have a choice because that person was just embarrassing the band on
Hmm.
stage, and that person was pissed at me.
Of course. Like, what do you mean I'm fired in the middle of a gig?
Yeah,
Pack up my stuff and go. Did he
and
actually pack up and go, though?
it was a she, and yes, she did, but she was pissed, and
Mm.
that's a tough one to. How do you word that? Like, and I just kept it very simple. I need, I need to let you go. You're done for the night. Thank you for everything, and that was it. Not you're too drunk. Not throwing darts at the person. Just
Yep, just the facts. Sorry.
get just the facts, man. Yeah, and that's the thing too. That's the thing about experience. Like Scott says, one of the things about us old bastards who are still out there doing it, we figured this out a while back. So, yeah, it's something you figure out over time, and hopefully you make it through and live to tell the tale.
Yeah, but that's the thing too. You got to get home from the gig, right? And then life resumes, back at the ranch, so to speak, right? So if you got a wife, kids, family, anything like that, you don't come home. That's it impacts a lot of people. Or
Yeah,
you come home super impaired, right? Or you get arrested on the way home, and now you can't drive to the gigs anymore. Like there's
right.
so many repercussions. Like you can only roll the dice so many times. You know what I mean?
That is true.
Before it will catch up with you. So
That is true. So hopefully we'll have more good news about all
yeah.
that next week. We will announce the new Hercules contest for December next week,
And are
and
you playing this coming weekend, Steve?
this weekend I'll be playing Friday day, Saturday day, Sunday day, and Sunday night. So not
Nice.
as much. But in the meantime, please go to our website, coverbandcentral.com. Sign up for a profile for you, your band, or both. It is free. Any questions or comments directed at me or Tony, you can email Steve at coverbandcentral.com. Anything else you want to talk about, that's the email to reach us at. And hopefully we'll have a guest next week. Like I said, I'm going to reach out to Paul and see if he'll come on board.
Yeah.
But any other guest suggestions anybody else has, let us know. And have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next time.